There's no one way to learn bird sounds, and it's usually a combination of things that works for different people in different circumstances and with different bird species. But the most important is familiarity through repetition. It's about being exposed to a sound often enough and with some knowledge of what it is that we're listening to. There's nothing intrinsic about our exposure to sound that means we understand what it is. It is about focusing our attention. And of course there are different ways to get this exposure. For the common birds, the simplest opportunity is really just to be outside with them as often as we can. Ideally that's in a place that we're familiar with, that we can get to very easily. Perhaps it's part of our sit spot practice, perhaps it's a regular walk that we take, or simply being in the garden. Not only does regular practice help us get our ears tuned and help us just enjoy the birds that we've got around us, it's also building up that core library of sounds in our head. And that's especially helpful when we go into situations where there are unusual sounds, because once we've got that core library, we can start to filter out the things that we're already familiar with and focus in on the ones that we're not so familiar with. For example, most of our common garden birds are originally woodland birds, and so we can expect to hear many of them, blackbirds, thrushes, wrens, robins, tits, when we go into the woods. And that core gives us the ability to filter and to focus. For those birds that we don't come across so often in our everyday lives, technology can be very helpful, and there are lots of different ways that it can help us. One way, of course, is through these videos, so you can check back on these as often as you like to help you get familiar with the sounds. But there are lots of other tricks that we can play on ourselves. One might be that if there's a call that you particularly want to get used to, you set it as the ringtone on your phone, or maybe as the notification sound for when you get a message. You could set it as the alarm sound as well when you wake up in the morning. There is the Collins Bird Guide, which you can download to your phone, and that has accounts of all the different species, including the songs and the main calls for most of them. You just carry that around with you, and that's incredibly useful. All of this is even more powerful when we can find some kind of similarity in the sound. For each of the species we'll focus on, we're going to be listening out for moments that sound like something that we already have in our heads. This is an area which is really quite individual. We all have a different library of sounds in our heads. We actually all hear sounds slightly differently too. So this is about finding the thing that works for us. For example, to my ear, a kingfisher sounds just like a dog whistle. Once I made that connection, I found I was hearing a lot more kingfishers and then seeing a lot more kingfishers too. Imitation is also a great way to get some bird sounds into your head. Everyone can try the dweep dweep sound of a nuthatch. Or the chick of a great spotted woodpecker. So as you familiarise yourself with a particular species, just keep asking, what does this sound like to you, and make a note of it. It can be a very good question to ask a group, particularly a group of children. You will always get some answers that you would never have come up with yourself. And this all applies to the way that a song sounds to you as well. Again, very individual, but to my ear, a robin sounds wistful or philosophical. A chaffinch sounds cheerful. These things can be a really helpful shortcut to remembering what kind of birds we might be listening to. And then there are some really helpful mnemonics and memory tricks that can help us remember the rhythm of a song. So for a collared dove, we can think of the rhythm as, I don't know, I don't know. Whereas a wood pigeon says, I really don't know, I really don't know. 5 notes. The yellowhammer famously sings, a little bit of bread and no cheese. As far as I'm aware, no one's come up with a better way of describing the rhythm of that song. Some people even find it useful to draw the way that a bird sounds in scribbles. You could even use natural materials to answer the same question. In the videos, I will offer some of the popular ways that people have interpreted the sounds and some of my own, but really it's all about finding whatever works for you.